Okay, so hello class. The purpose of this video is going to be to continue on to objective 3. And today we're going to be calculating the slope, not from a graph like you were supposed to do on Monday, but instead from when you are given 2 points exactly. At this point, I do want to remind you to make sure you complete your assignment from Monday. I noticed that many of you have not done so. That assignment is worth 20 points, which is a lot more than a normal assignment is worth. So I really encourage you to complete it and to use the video on Canvas as a support if you need additional help. I want to talk to you now if instead of being given the graph of a line, you're given 2 points that are on the line. So it says find the slope of a line that passes through the given points. And let's remember that slope equals rise over run. And we know that. So one of the things we could do is we could graph the 2 points, make a line through them, and then calculate the slope. But that would take a long time. So instead we're going to use something known as the slope formula. Now, I really don't like to follow the formula because it could get confusing with y2s and y1s and x2s and x1s. Instead, I simply remember that it's always a subtraction problem. On the top, it's going to be a subtraction problem of y's, and on the bottom, it's going to be a subtraction problem of x's. And it doesn't really matter where you start as long as you are consistent. So I like to start on the point on the left. And to find my slope, I simply start with the point on the left and I say, okay, I'm going to do 4. And I like to draw this arrow because it reminds me of where I started. I started at 4 and I'm going to subtract a 1. 4 minus 1. These are y coordinates. So we are going to subtract them on the top. On the bottom, we're going to subtract the x coordinates. Now, since I started on the 4, which is the point on the left, I got to start on this one as well. I cannot start on the 5 and go to the -2 because that would not be the correct order. These are the x coordinates and they go on the bottom. So it's going to be -2 minus 5. Now, all I have to do now is to simplify. 4 minus 1 is 3. And -2 minus 5 is -7. Now, you won't find this answer like this on a multiple choice test, but what you will find is a negative kind of in the center or on the top. And that's the slope of your line. The rise is -3 and the run is 7. See, we didn't need a picture. Now, you might say, okay, but what if I had picked a different order? Would I get the same answer? And yes, you will. So let me show you something different. If instead of starting at 4, what if I decided to start at 1 and go to 4? Well, that's fine. If I start at 1, then I subtract 4. But that means that for the x coordinate, I now must start at 5 and subtract the -2. And here's where you have to be a little careful because you're always going to subtract. But if the number you're subtracting has a negative on it, then you must include an extra negative to account for that. So it's always minus, and if your number has a negative, then you add an additional negative to account for that. 2 negatives become a positive, chop chop. On the top we have 1 minus 4, which is -3, and on the bottom we have 5 plus 2, which is 7. And you see, we got the same exact answer. So the order does not matter, but it does matter that you are consistent. If you start on the point on the left for the y coordinate, you must do so as well for the x coordinate and vice versa. Let's try to do this one. I like to go left to right. So I'm going to go ahead and go -6 over to -3. Now, you got to be careful because 3 has a negative. So that means I have to put another negative next to it. It's already minus from the formula, but the 3 has a negative next to it. So we had to account for that. On the bottom then, I'm going to go 8 minus 5. Okay, so I end up with 2 negatives, which give me a positive. So that's -3 over +3, which of course reduces to -1. Now I could go back and try this problem going in the reverse order, and I would get the same exact answer. Okay? Alright, well there's one more thing I want to teach you from this video, and that is, what if instead of giving 2 points, you are given a table of values? These are very similar to the ones we created, or actually they're exactly like the ones we created in the previous unit. Well, the only difference is that with the previous example, you were given exactly 2 points. With this example, you are being given 4 points. And it does not matter what 2 points you pick. You have to pick 2 points, but it doesn't matter which ones because the slope of a line will always be the same no matter what 2 points you pick. I like to pick 2 points that are close to each other so that reducing will be not a big deal. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and pick -1, 5 and 2, -7. Again, it does not matter which ones you pick. And I'm going to write them side by side so I can see how the subtraction is going to work nicely and I don't get confused. So I have x's y, x, y. If you remember, it's rise over run. So we're going to subtract the y on top and the x on the bottom. And I always like to draw these little arrows because I can tell where I start to where I'm going. And I can also tell that y's go on top and x's go on bottom. It's just another reminder. So the slope is going to be 5 minus a -7. And on the bottom, it's -1 minus 2. So that gives us two negatives. That's going to be 5 plus 7 is 12. And on the bottom, -3. So 12 divided by -3 is -4. And that is our slope. And if you had picked two other points on here, you would have gotten the same result. So it doesn't matter. Okay, so last example. We have 4 points to choose from. Again, you're just going to pick any two. I'm just going to pick 0, 1. Seems pretty easy. And 4, 3. And I'm going to put them side by side. Let's see. 0, 1 and 4, 3. And I'm going to subtract those. So I'm going to do 1 minus 3. And 0 minus 4. And in this case, it might have actually been easier to go the other way around to avoid getting negatives, but the answer is going to be the same. On the top, I get a -2. On the bottom, I get a -4. Now you're going to notice right away that two negatives, when they're being divided, become a positive. And that 2 divided by 4, when you reduce it by the factor of 2, becomes 1 over 2. So the result of my slope is 1/2. And that's it. Tomorrow we will go over parallel perpendicular lines. Keep in mind when you're setting up your slope to always do y's on top and to be consistent from where you start to where you're going, both on the y's and the x's. And don't forget to reduce. Make sure you get your assignment done. It is now in Elluminate. These notes get pasted on page 72 right next to the other notes. Complete your assignment. You're going to need a regular piece of paper. I believe you're going to fold it into 8 spaces so that you have 8 in the front, 8 in the back, and you're going to do the work on that piece of paper. You're going to turn that into your sub, and you're going to submit your answers in Elluminate. Thank you so much, and I hope you're doing well. See you in a few days.